All right, everybody, thanks for joining in. This episode, we are talking about, well, it's not really new, even though I was thinking it was new the other day, but it's not really that new. I mean, I guess it's 8 years old. I don't remember exactly when it came out. I don't think it actually came out until like 2013 or 2014. But anyway, we're talking about 2012's Room 237.
Damn, I didn't realize how old that film was.
I know.
It's funny because my brother got that for me for Christmas or my birthday. He got me that on Blu-ray and The Shining, and sent it to me, and I never watched it. I think I put it in and I watched maybe 5 minutes of it, but I never got much further than that. And so this time around for this show was the first time I sat down and watched the whole thing.
During the intro too, I was almost going to say this is our first time covering like a documentary, but then I remembered like a while ago. I mean, it was like one of the first things we ever talked about in regards to Shudder, but we did that Primal Scream thing or Primal Screen or whatever the heck it was
Mm-hmm.
from whenever that. I mean, when was that? That was like 4 or 5 years ago now.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
But
Yeah.
anyway, I seem to remember like this was. I want to say this was like on Shudder at one point. Man,
Was it? Okay.
I think so. I could be wrong, but I'm the same. Like, I didn't own it, but I was the same way. Like I remember like when this came out, and then being like, "Oh, that sounds kind of cool," and then I thought I'd watched it, but then like I must not like the same as you. I must maybe either thought I was going to watch it or turned it on and then got distracted and turned it off and never got back to it or something. This time around was the first time watch for me as well.
Yeah, I heard some snippets about it, and it was actually what kind of caught my ear was a few years back. I got really into conspiracies, and one of the things that I always had a kind of an interest in since I've been in conspiracies is the whole idea of the possibility that the moon landing was fake, and like that there was some kind of filming involved with that, or like that Stanley Kubrick somehow may have, and regardless of whether or not we really went isn't really the question. It's that did we really, what we saw on TV, was that really truly what really was seen on the moon? So I always kind of thought that was kind of interesting, and I knew that they kind of talk about that in this film. So yeah, that's kind of the reason I think that it was like, okay, I got to check this out, and that's probably my biggest interest with it, because I've never been really a big fan of the movie The Shining.
Right. Yeah, which is funny because when you had said this movie too, I was like, what? Why does he want to talk about that for? I don't know that he's even really that big of a fan of The Shining, but okay,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Yeah, no, I'm not a fan of The Shining. I never was. There's so many people around, that consider this a classic, and I get it. And it's a well acted, well directed, well written film, but just the story never resonated with me. And I actually read the book too, and the book didn't do it for me either. I was just, oh, okay. It's like one of my least favorite Stephen King successful stories or whatever.
Yeah, I love The Shining, and I love like the Ewan McGregor movie from whenever that was last year, the Doctor
Dr.
Sleep.
Sleep.
Yep,
Okay.
that was great. And I knew this documentary was about The Shining, and I knew it was like about different perspectives about what The Shining was about. But I gotta tell you, man, watching this, like almost right away, you're kind of like, what are you saying there, crazy pants? That's some. I've seen The Shining 100 times. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Sure.
It was like pretty much one after another, too. It was like, huh? No, I didn't. I don't remember seeing that in that movie.
Yeah, no, and yeah, there's a few things in there that kind of were okay. So basically, this is about the idea of this is that Stanley Kubrick was putting in a lot more into the film than what just the story itself is. He is like kind of letting other people know, like it's sort of like a subliminal story is going on. and some of it like was really fascinating to me. Some of it would like seem like the one thing that kind of was like, that's a little far fetched is when he's talking where there's that one room and like the two twin girls come in and he says, "Look at the one side of the wall. That's supposed to be the Minotaur," and it's like this a picture of somebody skiing, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, how do you see that as like that? Okay, all right, that's weird. And I mean, there were some things like that that you just kind of question, like, was that really, um, is that really something, or are they looking into it too deeply? Then the other thing too was when I forget exactly what the context of it was, but the scene where Jack Nicholson walks in and shakes the guy's hand that runs the Overlook
Oh
Hotel.
yeah, with his giant penis supposedly.
Yeah, yeah. That to me didn't look that way. I
Nope,
didn't like.
nope, not at all.
I was like, he just walked by like a little shelf area there,
Yep.
and so those things to me were kind of, whatever, okay, and I didn't really like totally like buy that was what he was what they really what it was to be.
Right. Well, I will say, because I am a Stanley Kubrick fan, I would say to some extent. I don't know if there's really any Stanley Kubrick movies that I don't like, but I will say the one thing that kept popping into my head as I was watching this was, man, these guys are giving Stanley Kubrick a lot more credit than he really deserves. And I
No.
mean, but if you think about it, I mean, it's the same with people. The people do this shit all the time to people they think are a good director. I mean, Hitchcock gets it all the time,
Hmm.
and Spielberg gets it all the time. Carpenter gets it all the time. All these guys get it all the time. Like, oh, look how great they are, and look at this is what the genius of this and this shot or this or that.
Hmm.
That's I don't know if that's really what he meant. Maybe he just got lucky with that.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying with that. And there was another thing that they did that I thought was, I don't know, it seemed a little far fetched, but I don't know what your thought. Well, let me see what your thoughts were with the whole idea where if you play the film, I think it was like play the same scene, like you play the movie forward, play the movie backward, and the scenes sort of overlap. Remember that? Where you like if you take like the imagery you see on the screen and it's like all kind of overlapping itself.
Yeah, see, to me, it's all just far fetched. Just I don't
Now
know.
all of that was to me like was very far fetched, and like even like the thing where they had like the scene where what is it called, the dissolve scene where like this one screen dissolves into another, and like the looks like Jack Nicholson's head, the patch of hair like goes onto under his nose, and he looks like Hitler for a second, and they had some kind of issue with that, and like that was supposed to mean something. And I mean, there was like a lot of that in there.
I wonder if these guys had like all of these theories about this movie before this movie was ever released, like on DVD or Blu-ray, where they could get in and like frame by frame to catch this shit. Like, oh,
Yeah,
there's that shadow in that one scene right there. There, I got it in that one frame. He looks
yeah,
like
right.
totally like Hitler.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things where, yeah, they really kind of, there's some things that you just kind of don't fully, I don't know, I didn't fully buy into it. But I will tell you that there was something that I did find quite interesting. And what did you think about the part where they talk about the moon landing? That's because let's put everything else aside. Let's look at that part because there's some really interesting stuff there that I did kind of find pretty fascinating.
Oh, I don't believe that the moon landing was faked at all.
Okay. Well, here's what I thought was fat. Like now, I'm gonna be very very open minded to this. Like this, my concept is this. Okay, when it comes to the idea of the moon landing being faked, did we land on the moon? Probably, we probably did. But again, we're just believing what we're being told, right? And there's people that are a lot more powerful than us that would be able to present to the world like what really happened. And another thing is, did they really, did what we see on the screen, was that actually true to what was happening on the moon? Did they actually videotape that? because there's a lot of theories about like, that there's no way that cameras could have gotten through the radioactive belt, that would have destroyed them. There's no way they could have filmed it. So they needed to have something filmed. And that's what they showed the American and the world basically, that this is what it was. And when you compare the moon landing, like what you see on, that was shown to everybody, you compare it to like Stanley Kubrick's 2001, there are a lot of weird similarities where like that looks kind of the same. It's like the way it's lit and everything. And again, I'm just some idiot doing a podcast, so I don't have the answers to it. But it is interesting. But the thing that I thought was really fascinating, so the Apollo 11, okay, so that scene with Danny, the little boy, where he's sitting on the rug, he stands up, and what's on his shirt? It's the Apollo 11 rocket. It's actually literally there, and it actually says that on it. And what does he do? He walks down the hallway, and he goes to room, what is it, 237, and one of the things like this, like one of the documentary people was saying that it was anytime there was a change from what Stephen King had wrote in the book to what Kubrick put in the movie, that is like a sign that you got to follow. And he said, like, okay, so originally the room was 213, changes it to 237. What's 237? Was 237,000 miles from the Earth to the moon. So could that all be like some strange coincidence? Yep, absolutely. But that kind of hooked me in, and that was like one thing that I found kind of interesting. And then the idea that where Jack Nicholson, where he's writing that all work and no play and all that stuff, and then he gets real angry at his wife, and he's telling like that I'm hired for a contract and I got to do this, and you don't understand what contracts mean, and blah 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 blah. And like the theorist or whatever you want to call him was saying basically that was what Kubrick had to explain to his wife, that there was probably a time where she found out he had to do this moon landing deal, and he was like trying to explain to her, look, because none of that was in the book, so that was all added in, and that was like supposedly, and again, this could be all just nonsense, and I have no idea, I wasn't there, but like the idea is that maybe that's what was happening. It was him telling his wife, like, look, I made a contract with the U.S. government. I have to film the moon landing, and you don't understand that there's no way I can get around this, or something like that. But I thought those are the parts of the script that I really, really, really thought were kind of interesting.
Well, I'm glad somebody found it interesting, because I got to tell you, man, I was bored out of my freaking mind with this thing. It was so freaking. I really wish I could go back and like review like when it first came out, if it talked about it being like on the conspiracy side of things more than it being just about The Shining, because yeah, I just don't remember if it was portrayed that way when it was advertised. But in movie documentaries are kind of hit or miss anyway. And then when you get into the whole horror stuff, like some of the horror documentaries can be really bad. Some of them can be really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one to me anyway, because I mean, I'm not really big on the conspiracy theories. And as I said before, like as they're going through some of this stuff and you're just like, I don't see that at all. I don't, whatever. That's completely far fetched. You just, you just check out more and more and more and more the further as they go along. And it's just like, ugh. I mean, I remember there was one, I think it was fairly early on when they were talking about like driving up, and they were saying how like in the clouds, you could see Stanley Kubrick's face if you looked in the one area. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I didn't see that at all. I was looking for that. I'm like, what? Are you sure about that? And that like whole idea of like you're looking at clouds. Of course, clouds are whatever you want to see in a cloud, you're going to see.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing too, because that's what I was kind of thinking when they were talking about. It was that scene, and there was something else too where they were talking about, but they didn't really say where to see it, and that's where I was thinking, like, well, of course. You're just telling somebody that there's an image of something over there,
Hmm.
They're going to look at me, oh yeah, I think I see that right there.
Hmm.
Not this whole I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying with that. There was a lot of that stuff. There's things where you like question, like again going back to that poster with the what they call the minotaur, like the bull-headed person, and it was like I'm not seeing that. I'm just seeing a guy skiing. It even says skiing on there. But going back to the space thing, and again, I don't know. I don't even want to say that I have any clue. I'm just trying to play like the idea of like, well, let's see what maybe there's something here. Then there's a scene where they're in like the food storage room and there's nothing but Tang behind like the actors, and obviously Tang being like the space, the food that they used in space or whatever. And one last thing I want to mention, if this is true, okay, like if he really was putting like special codes and subliminal messages in his movies, and he was hired by the U.S. government way back in like in the late '60s to film the moon landing. If that's all true, if that really happened, okay, and he's putting this code in there, and he's trying to like tell a story to people. So you ultimately you're saying like this, you think it's just BS. It really didn't happen. There's nothing to look into other than what's face value.
Yeah, to me, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So going back to Stanley Kubrick, to say that he did all that stuff, there's more to it than that. This is a good way to cap this off, and this is one thing I thought was pretty interesting. So his the idea of a conspiracy is that there's like an elite group of people, like a secret society that runs everything. And well, what his last film was Eyes Wide Shut with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. And the concept of that film, I think I only saw it once, and it's been a long time. But the basic concept is, here you have this doctor and his wife, and this doctor being like, basically like kind of the top of the food chain kind of career or whatever, is thinking he's like all this and he's got all this money and he's knows all these fancy people, and then he finds out that there's this organization that's way beyond him and in control of everything, and he's just this little tiny puppet basically compared to that. And this movie was, to the conspiracy theorists, they believe that it was like Stanley Kubrick's final, hey, this is what's really going on in the world, take a look at it. And that's why we call it Eyes Wide Shut. It's because it's something you see every day, but your eyes are shut to it because you don't realize it. So that film was released in on July 16th, 1999, and the moon landing was July 20th, 1969. So almost 30 years to the day. And then at that point, Stanley Kubrick died, and I think there's some like kind of mysterious things about that. And what are your thoughts about that? Like that kind of that final thing. I mean, I know I'm kind of drumming this up pretty dramatically, but
Well, like I said before, I think all these people are giving Stanley Kubrick way too much credit for what he deserved.
sure.
For a lot of these, I mean, like I said before, like all of these guys, I mean, yeah, there are some genius moments here and there, but let's say Stanley Kubrick had some weird government contract and he filmed some weird thing for some propaganda thing for the moon landing. And then 10 years later or whatever, 11 years later, he's out there making The Shining and he's putting all of this like obvious messaging in there. I mean, here's the
Mm-hmm.
Apollo 11 thing. You don't think the government's going to be like, hey, dude, knock that shit off? You can't put this movie out.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. I mean, like when they shut him down, right?
Right.
I guess the only thing is that, and this is when it goes down to conspiracy theories. One of the big things they always talk about is the idea of putting the evidence in plain sight. Like an example would be like the dollar bill, for example. People who believe in conspiracy theories, they turn the dollar bill around and it says this thing about the new world order on it, and there's like these weird little, there's like the eyeball and the pyramid and all this stuff. And everybody obviously has used a dollar bill before. I mean, that's something that we all have, used. And the concept is do everything in plain sight and nobody will notice. So is that what Kubrick is doing here? Is he's doing everything in plain sight? And like for me, like, until I knew about any of this stuff, like the idea that there was even like a concept, like a conspiratorial concept to that, would never even thought twice about any of this stuff. I watched The Shining as like, okay, this is a horror movie about a guy who goes to the Overlook Hotel and goes crazy and starts to attack his family. That's all I thought about until, like I don't remember how the whole moon landing, all that stuff. I think it was a podcast I was listening to that kind of opened my eyes to it. But that's the other train of thought with that. So that's something to think about.
So I couldn't remember how far ahead of Eyes Wide Shut coming out that Stanley Kubrick died, but it was shortly before. It was only a couple months before it.
Yeah, it was a weird, because you watch Eyes Wide Shut. What's that about? It's about, basically, if you wanted to sum it up, it's the Illuminati. It's about like, secret societies and sex cults and Tom Cruise getting involved in, finding this out and going to this secret party and, and all this weird stuff happening. And he's there, and then like he realizes that, oh, I'm a doctor, and I thought I was Mr. I was on top of the world, but I'm actually just this little tiny speck on the grand reality of everything. And that's what that film's about, basically. That's what it's all about. And that being Kubrick's last film, and that his weird, I guess there was some strange thing about his death at that point. And whether, I mean, again, I don't know if I'd even say what I'm doing is playing devil's advocate. I'm just kind of throwing this all out there because Room 237 is definitely a film about conspiracy theories. There's some interesting stuff in there. Ultimately, watching it was like, kind of like you said, it was sort of dry. It was definitely not like something that, you sit through and like, wow, this is really riveting. You're kind of like, oh, okay, if you say so. I mean, all right, whatever. And some of the stuff, like some of the people said, like, I don't know that I fully bought into that. Like, it just seemed like it was too coincidental. And but at the end of the day, it was, I enjoyed it to some degree, but again, I don't think I would ever watch this again.
Yeah, I don't think I would ever watch it again either. I was bored to death. And I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. I mean, I guess, yeah, if you're a conspiracy theorist, or if you're one of these people that really likes to analyze film, because I mean, really, that's what this is however many guys it was, or I shouldn't say just guys, but how many people were involved with this. I think, what they say there in the opening, there was like 9 different opinions or something, I think is what they said. But anyway, like some of these people, I mean, they almost sounded like that's what they did with their entire lives was, I've been studying this film for 30 years. Like, what do you do that's all you do is study one movie for 30 years?
Yeah.
And no, I mean, if you're studying something for 30 years, yeah, you're going to pick up on little shit like, oh, I saw something over on that one scene. But I mean, if you're a conspiracy theorist, or like I said, analyzing film, then yeah, this is probably right up your alley. But if you're just somebody who just likes watching movies, and I mean, I don't have to overanalyze every little aspect of the movie. Hell, half the time I just want to watch it, and not even really think about anything else. So, yeah. But yeah, for me, I mean, I did not enjoy this at all. So it's getting a big old fat thumbs down for me.
No, I can hear that. Yeah, this one is like an acquired taste. I will definitely admit that. They do a really good job of kind of presenting all of the Shining conspiracy theories, but it, again, like it's not. Again, you have to be into that stuff to enjoy this. So I do have kind of a fascination with conspiracies, not as much as I used to. I've really kind of gotten way away from that quite a bit, actually. But So in that sense, I got to say that there people the people that were, presenting their case were informative. It was interesting, and I don't want to shut them out. I don't want to say like, yeah, this is terrible or what have you. So I got to give it a slight thumbs up, just because, hey, if you're into this, if that's what you're into, you like looking into the bigger picture of films. This might be something for you. And one thing I do want to mention too that I thought was really fascinating. I never even thought of this before, but this really fascinated me, and I don't remember where it was quoted in the whole thing, but they said something along the lines of this idea that when somebody makes a film, there's like the main film that you see on the screen, but then there's this unconscious stuff that the director and the writer have in their mind that they don't even know that's there, just built up on where they are culturally and what have you, that comes out on the screen too. And I thought that was kind of fascinating, because it's like there's almost like that's like you watch a film and you can, like, so many people can analyze it and say, oh, this is what it means, that's what that means, or and they see more into it than, like, somebody else sees. And it was like, yeah, because there's this we all, our brains were, always absorbing information, and not all of it do we fully process or understand consciously. But to an artist, they put out some of it, that they know that they're putting out, but then there's all this other stuff that's coming out too that they have no clue that's there. And I thought that was a fascinating statement.